How Steam Power Changed the World, a documentary by Isabella.
Back then, before the steam. Life before the Industrial Revolution was hard. You had to work before you ate or played, and then you only made a little income. Most people had the job of cotton picking or factory work just down on the old farm. It was hard, and on top of that they didn't have the cotton gin yet, or the mechanical plower, or any machinery at all yet. So everything had to be done either by hand or hard labor. So back then you had to hand pick cotton. Ouch! The average person could only hand pick about a bushel a day, and it hurt a lot. Imagine the sharp thorns cutting your sore fingers every time you pulled off a cotton seed. And also when it was time to pick, it was midsummer and hot. So when farmers learned about the new steam engines that would be making their jobs easier, they must have been happy. And later on, after the cotton gin was built, it was able to do an average of 10 bushels a day. It got work done a lot faster and in bigger quantities. Later, after the steam car was invented, it was much easier to travel. Although before automobiles, people took much more care and time to do everything, so life became much more hurried, gradually and little by little. What is a steam engine? Steam power. What is that really? Well, let me tell you. A steam engine is a really big engine that works by using steam. Steam engines are external combustion engines, where the working fluid, steam, is separate from the combustion stuff. That's a simple way of how it works. The history of steam power dates all the way back to 1st century AD, where Hero of Alexandria tells of a steam-powered turbine called the Aeolipile. The Aeolipile was described as an example of the power of heated water or air. The Aeolipile is a hollow metal rotating ball or sphere supported on two hollow brackets on top of an enclosed basin that is filled with boiling water and spun or moved by two angled pipes or jets. It was said that back then the movement of the ball was to supposedly make puppets dance, but it produces little power and had practically no use at all, but was nevertheless known as the first object moved by steam power or pressure. How does a steam engine work? How does a steam engine work? The primary element you need to make a steam engine work is steam. And where does steam come from? Water. And how do you make water into steam? You boil it. Even though it had no practical use, the Aeolipile is the easiest steam engine to explain. The Aeolipile, as explained previously, is held up by two hollow brackets on top of an enclosed basin that is filled with water, and the basin is held up off the ground by three legs, and underneath the basin is a fire which heats up the water inside of the basin. And when the water starts to steam, the steam goes up out of the tubes and into the ball and out of the two angled pipes that then start to make the ball spin. In a more modern engine, the high-pressured steam is forced into the cylinder through a tube when the piston is moved in one direction, as seen in the picture. And as the piston starts to move in the other direction, the valve rod moves over the steam inside, and then the steam exhaust tube is opened, and the piston pushes the steam out and moves, thereby creating force to push engine parts such as a wheel. A short history of the steam engine. Steam power dates back to 1st century AD, where Hero of Alexandria wrote of a steam-powered turbine called the Aeolipile, as we discussed a few minutes ago. In 1675, a Jesuit priest supposedly living in China reportedly developed a vehicle that moved or was propelled by an early version of the steam turbine. In 1775, in the UK, about 600 new Coleman engines had been built. In 1787, on the Delaware River in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the first steamboat in America was showed. In 1790, in the USA, a man named Oliver Evans applied for a patent for a long steam carriage, which he later named a Ructor Amphibulos. In 1813, third Wylam locomotive built, with 8 wheels to spread axle load. In 1897, Stanley Brothers began selling over 200 lightweight steam cars. And finally, in 2009, on August 25, 2009, Steam inspiration of the British Steam Car Challenge broke the long-standing record for a steam vehicle set by a Stanley steamer in 1906, setting a new speed record of 139.843 miles per hour in the Edwards Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert of California. Industries affected by steam power during the Industrial Revolution. Horses. During the Industrial Revolution, steam power began to replace muscle power, which often came from horses, as the primary source of power in use in industry. Seeing as the horses did a lot of the work back then, such as plowing, boat hauling, wagon pulling, log pulling, heavy load hauling, and more, they must have been relieved when they heard that tractors were coming soon. Water. Many factories had to be built near or by water so that they could work, and during the Industrial Revolution, steam power began to replace water power, which was one of the most important power sources. Mines. One of the steam engine's first uses was to pump water from the mines. Factories. Now they could build their buildings anywhere, instead of having to be built near large quantities of water. Railways, farms, and road vehicles. After Richard Treverick's development of the high-pressure engine, transport applications became possible, and steam engines found their way into boats, railways, farms, and road vehicles. Steam engines. They are an example of how changes brought by industrialization led to even more changes in other areas. Farms and mills. As previously stated, it was hard labor to do any meaningful work before steam machines. Before steam power came, farmers and laborers had to do everything by hand, manually, and with back-breaking work. Today, the steam engines don't have as much of a big role as it did back then. Today, we use internal combustion engines to power most of our machines. Now that we have machines to move or power our stuff, life is much more simple than it used to be. Now we don't have to hand-pick cotton or weave cloth or manually use a team of horses to plow a field of hard rocks and dirt. Today we have solar-powered cars, internal combustion engine tractors, and much more.